Hi guys, it's ASBYT and today we're talking about the Honor 10. Now, the launch was roughly around a month ago and I've had it for a little while now, so I'd like to go through my honest review so far. Now, like I mentioned in my unboxing video, this device was sent to me by Honor, so that is absolutely great that I can test it for you guys, but this review will definitely still be an honest opinion because I think that is only fair. So I'll go through the positives, the negatives, and then give my overall sort of general conclusion. Design, camera, specs, price, so that you're getting all the information to make a smarter purchase decision if you are indeed looking to buy this phone. So it's the Honor 10 Phantom Blue. Let's get straight to it. Right, so like I said, welcome back to a brand new video. We have in front of me here the Honor 10. Right, so currently the actual trend in smartphones is that the top tier flagships are slightly lacking in innovation and improvements upon previous generations, but the prices still remain pretty high. But where I'm excited in smartphones is that mid-tier price range. And the reason why is because what's happening more and more is we're getting top tier performance and compromising on a few little things that the top flagships have in order to bring the price right down to a medium level. And while the sentiment you get what you pay for kind of still rings fairly true in that budget or inexpensive area, it is slowly but surely being tested in this mid-tier range. It doesn't possibly have all the bells and whistles of a Samsung S9 or Pixel 2 or the iPhone 10, but you are still getting a fantastic performance when you think how much cheaper these sort of devices are compared to those top flagship phones. So Honor is like a subsection of Huawei and it is their sort of mid-tier price brand, but it does come in with top flagship specs. So we're talking the Kirin 970, which you will find in the Huawei P20 and P20 Pro. So we're talking very, very snappy performance. Is it quite as good as the 845 Snapdragon? In my personal opinion, not quite, but it is still a very, very good in-house processor made by Huawei. And we touched on the CPU. The GPU is the Mali G72 MP12. You certainly aren't going to have any problems going through the UI, gaming, all that sort of goodness. It is still a fantastic bit of kit. In terms of the display, it is an IPS LCD touchscreen, and that screen is 5.84 inches, so it's slightly smaller than some of its competitors. And in an expanding world of phablets, it's quite refreshing to see a fairly small size phone. It's not compact, but it is nevertheless smaller than, again, some of its competitors. 2280 by 1080 and a PPI density of 432. So you are getting a pretty sharp display. And while it's not potentially quite as good as an AMOLED screen, in my personal opinion, for that rich, deep, dark blacks, you will obviously usually get better longevity with an LCD over AMOLED. So there are pros and cons to both. It comes down to personal preference. I personally prefer AMOLED screens, but it certainly is a nice LCD screen. It's pretty bright, it's pretty vibrant as well, and when you take into account that it runs EMUI 8.1 over the top of Android 8.1, which is their skin, which also is very colourful and vibrant, you are getting a nice experience. I mentioned how colourful and vibrant it is. The downside to that, it does look a little bit kiddish, a little bit toyish in my personal opinion. I prefer stock Android or close to stock Android, but again, there are positives and negatives to the UI. You can customize the UI. You can put like an app drawer in there, for example, and you can also add a launcher if you prefer, like Nova. So some of those individual quirks to the UI, you've got like knuckle gestures, you've got a party mode where you can connect more than one Honor 10 up and you can have sort of surround sound. You can have them all playing, they sync up to play exactly the same music, for example, at the same time. So that is very handy if you have more than one in a group, in a party. A little bit of a gimmick, but still a fairly decent feature. You've also got things like one-handed mode, so there are quite a few nice features to the UI. Now also with the software, we have the ability to blacken out the notch if you so wish. I know a lot of people don't like the notch. I personally don't mind it. I like the fact that you can obviously add the icons above and then they don't sort of jump into the real estate, but you can go to no notch mode if you so wish, and it just will look a bit more symmetrical to your eyes. Now personally, if you go to the lengths of adding a notch to the phone, that's generally to make it feel as bezel-less as possible. I personally feel the bezels are slightly bigger than I would like and are on certain other phones as well, and that detracts from the premium feel in my personal opinion just a little bit. Also along those same lines, we have quite a large chin for a notched phone, and that's mainly down to the fact that we have, of course, the fingerprint sensor on the bottom and not on the rear. I personally would like to see it on the rear in this case, just because it would increase the screen to body ratio. I don't think you personally need the fingerprint sensor on the bottom. The only advantage of this fingerprint sensor over others is the fact that you can use this in wet conditions conditions. So if you've got sweaty hands, if you're one of those people, or you, of course, in the rain, or you get your hands wet just washing up or whatever, you can still use the phone and it will work absolutely flawlessly, whereas other fingerprint sensors, it won't register your fingerprint if they're wet. It's not water resistant in any way though, this phone, so I'm not really sure how many times you would use this feature, but it's still a feature. Talking of that fingerprint sensor, while it's not the fastest on the market, it is still pretty fast. It is very reliable, and Huawei do generally make really, really good fingerprint sensors, and this is no different. What is possibly one of the fastest on the market though is, is the face unlock. So, bam, in. Bam, in. And in my unboxing video, I actually mentioned it was a 2-stage thing. After using it, there is a setting to change it to a 1-stage, so that is a positive thing again. We're now going to talk about build quality. It's for a mid-tier priced phone, it does feel pretty premium. It's got nice metal and glass composition. It's not quite as heavy as some of its competitors. The Honor 10 doesn't have a certification, it doesn't have a real description, it is just metal and glass. So we're not really sure what we're getting. So in terms of that old-fashioned beautiful word that we use on this channel, breakability, we're not too sure. Of course, the main talking point is the colourful back. This one's a phantom blue colour, and it's actually two-tone depending on where the light hits it. It will change from blue to purple, which is a really nice touch. There are 3 other colours as well. You've got phantom green, which has 3 different colours, glacier grey, and you also have a black as well. So there are numerous different colours to suit different people. You either love it or you hate it having a big, bright, colourful back to your phone. Of course, if you don't like it, you can add a skin or a case. So again, I only see that really as a positive. We've got dual SIM, but it doesn't have an SD card, and I know that is a big deal breaker for a lot of people. Now, this version that was sent to me by Honor is the 128GB of storage and 4GB of RAM. There is also a 6GB of RAM option in certain markets. I believe it also comes in a 64GB option as well for storage. We have a headphone jack. We have USB Type-C, which includes fast charge, and in my personal experience, it is pretty snappy. With most fast charging these days, you're not going to have too many problems getting some good juice out of that battery in quick time, or adding juice to the battery. We also have a single speaker down the bottom, which of course you can cover, which can be a negative. We don't have stereo speakers, which I'd like to see on pretty much all phones nowadays, especially if you are including a notch. But again, in this mid-tier price range, it wouldn't potentially be a deal breaker for me. I will just give you a sample of the sound. So we'll turn it up to full volume. So this is the Honor 10 phone, and the first thing I've noticed is actually its size. It's a lot smaller than... So it's fairly in keeping with most mid-tier priced phones. It's not going to set the world alight by any means. It's not terrible. So one issue I had, one snag with the software, is the update situation. This phone told me there was an update available, and then when it went through, it downloaded it, and then when it rebooted to install, it just said failed. And I tried it a few times, and I've still not been able to update it. That might be because this is a review unit. I don't know though. On the actual error message I got, it does say you can contact Huawei customer service in order to get the problem resolved. So that is something that I haven't tried, and something that if you do get that issue, you may be able to try and sort out. Right, so now we're going to jump onto the camera, and this is where I feel that these sort of mid-tier phones are getting better and better. While they're not quite as good as the Pixels, the iPhones, the Samsungs of this world, they are getting a lot closer. And again, this is the case with the Honor 10. The camera on the whole works great. It's very sharp, it's very vibrant, it's very crisp. One of the most set of saturated photos you will find, but that's of course if it's using mainly the AI camera. And this is one of the big selling points to this phone this year. And we also saw this with the Huawei. Don't know what that was. We also saw this with the Huawei P20 and the P20 Pro. The use of artificial intelligence in the camera. So basically what it does, it sees what's on the scene in front of it, and it depicts what it is and processes the image accordingly. So if it sees food like apples, oranges, fruits that are flowers, for example, that are very colorful, it will make the photos jump out at you by oversaturating certain areas, etc. Also, if it sees it's a human or an animal, it tends to sort of blur the background, so you get that lovely portrait look to it. It's one of those, you either love it or you hate rate it. Obviously, you can do things like that and alter contrast, saturation, portraits, etc. on other phones manually, but this obviously does it automatically if you're on normal photo mode. So it is one of those. Certain times I found it a little bit unlifelike in what it did. Equally, sometimes I took a photo and I did really like the alterations that it made in the processing. So it's a bit of a swings and roundabouts situation for me. It can definitely be tweaked on in the future and something I'm excited about from the Honor series. It still feels a little bit like a work in progress, but nevertheless, you can get some fantastic photos with it. Video camera, again, the clarity is really good. It comes up to 4K at 30 frames a second is the highest. A little bit disappointing that there doesn't seem to be any OIS or EIS at that 4K at 30 frames a second. Right, so now we jump onto price, and again, this is where this is a real standout figure. It's a standout point. 399 UK sterling for a phone that has a top processor, a very decent camera, and really a lovely design as well. I think when you take everything into consideration, this is a very, very smart purchase if you are in that mid-tier price range. Obviously, it will come into comparison with the OnePlus 6 due to the price. Again, the lowest tier version of this is £469, so it is cheaper, and there are positives and negatives obviously to both of them, but it's in that ballpark for me. Are there better phones on the market? Yes, of course. Are there better phones on the market for £399? I'm not so sure. Right, so this is where you guys come in. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of the Honor 10. Is it something that you love, hate, somewhere in the middle? Are you going to go out and buy it? Have you already bought it? I'd love to know whenever you're watching this, what your first impressions are if you have bought it and how you're getting on with it. I also did a straight comparison with the OnePlus 6 as well in terms of specs, design, etc., feel in the hand, all that sort of goodness. So I'll leave everything linked here and down in the video description as well. Like and share if you did enjoy this video and found it helpful. Subscribe and hit that little notification bell if you are new to the channel and want to be notified every time I post a video. And I'll see you in the next one. ASBYT, peace out.